Today we are making tomato soup from scratch. You are going to need tomatoes, onions, chicken broth, herbs, and maybe some heavy whipping cream. We'll see what happens. To get started with this soup, we need to roast some tomatoes and some onions. So I'm going to show you how to do that. It's super simple, and then we'll turn it into soup.
So on a baking sheet with sides, you're going to put a piece of parchment paper and then you're going to cut up your tomatoes. It doesn't matter what kind of tomatoes you use, they just all need to be cut to about the same size. I used 3 pounds of tomatoes for this recipe.
And then this is such a sad soup to make because you have to cut onions, and if you're really sensitive to onions, it just makes a mess. So let's add the onions to the little tray here, and then we'll get stuff roasting.
Then we're going to drizzle all of this with olive oil. Just drizzle it on there, bloop it on there, whatever you want to call it. And then after that, we are going to put salt all over everything. I've got a Himalayan salt grinder here, so I'm grinding a whole bunch of salt on there. Use more than you think you're gonna need. And then I take some oregano. I don't measure, I just pour it into my hand. I suppose it's about a tablespoon probably. Sprinkle that all over. And then I'm gonna do the same thing with some dried basil. Now, if you do have fresh herbs, you could add those. I would add those after we actually make the soup. I wouldn't add them necessarily to this roasting thing, but that's just my personal preference. And here you go, here's what it looks like.
It looks good enough to eat right now, but we have more to do. So let's get this in the oven at 450, and we're gonna roast it. Magic. Now the oven is going to do its roasty magic for about 30 minutes, and then we're gonna check on it. All right, the timer just went off, so we are gonna check on these and see what they look like. Woo. Now do be careful when you're taking them out because there's gonna be a lot of liquid, so if you're not careful, you're gonna have liquid everywhere and it's gonna be hot and you're gonna burn yourself. But this is what we got right here. And it smells so delicious. Now, you can keep roasting them if you want them to get a little bit darker. You also can throw them under the broiler for a few minutes if you want them to get that like crispy edge. But I think we're just gonna go with this, and I think it's gonna be wonderful. So let's move along.
So here I am adding 2 cups of chicken broth. We're gonna get that boiling, and then I decided I'd try to be fancy and get all this in the center of the parchment paper and lift it up into a bowl, and it worked pretty well. Otherwise, you can just, you know, scoop the tomatoes off of the pan. Either way will work.
Now, I did not have cloves of garlic when I was roasting the tomatoes and the onions, and so if you have garlic, add it at that point, but I didn't, so I'm just gonna add some garlic powder to my soup right now. And you're like, how much garlic powder? I don't know, about that much. I don't measure a lot when I cook. Trust your heart, y'all. I don't know, what is that, like a teaspoon? I don't know. Let me see. Let's see. It's a little less than a teaspoon. We're gonna start with that. Maybe a little more. I love garlic. I'm gonna let that sit in there for a little bit, do its thing, simmer together. But you're probably wondering, Amy, I didn't want chunky tomato soup. Like, what is that? I'm gonna show you how we turn this into something that's a little more traditional, a little bit blendy. We're gonna use a hand blender, an immersion blender, to blend this up and make it smooth. If you're someone who wants it super, super smooth, put it in a blender, put it in a, I don't know, one of those fancy like Vitamix or I don't even know, those things that are really fancy that I don't have yet. But just mix it up, blend it, and then it's gonna get smooth, like y'all generally like your tomato soup. Oh! Careful with that blender, y'all. If you get too crazy, then you have a little mess to clean up. Now is the part where we're gonna taste the soup. Now there are a few things that you can do here. If you are someone who doesn't like your soup to be super acidic, some people have a problem with tomato soup because it's really acidic, there are some things you can do. Some people have said if you put a bay leaf in here for a little bit, it's gonna suck the acidity out. I don't know. Some people will put a little bit of sugar in there, maybe some honey, that will cut the acidity a little bit. Or you can also add some heavy whipping cream. I add heavy whipping cream just because I love heavy whipping cream, and then we turn it into a little bit of like a creamy tomato basil soup. I don't know. So let's do some tasting and see what we think. This is where you try not to burn your mouth, but you gotta test the soup. It needs salt. I always dance when, okay, so I always dance when I eat, when I'm like happy that I'm eating. I always do this dance. Do you guys do that too? I think it's a girl thing, but anyway. We need some salt, maybe a little bit more garlic. Can you believe that? And I think I'm gonna go ahead and add that heavy whipping cream. All right, I'm gonna add a little pepper. More salt. And of course, more garlic. Don't be afraid of spices, y'all. Don't be afraid of seasonings. Use them. How much heavy whipping cream do we add, Amy? You know what I'm gonna say. Till your heart tells you to stop. Just add a little, taste it, add a little, taste it. Making soup is as much a science as it is an art. Don't be afraid of it. That's so good. And that's on fixing onions that I couldn't get blended up with my hand blender. So I got out the food processor. You can fix the problems with your soup. There's probably a way more professional way to do this, but this is my kitchen and I don't know, this is real life. And there you have it, y'all. You got some roasted tomato soup made with excellent ingredients that doesn't have any bad stuff in it. And you can eat it now. And it's great. All hail the mighty soup. Y'all, I don't have a fancy kitchen, but there is some amazing stuff that comes out of it.